So there was a press release put out earlier this year by the Department of Health that the Australian government has now invested a total of over $18 billion in Australia's vaccine and COVID-19 treatment supply as a part of the COVID-19 health response. Now, I'll just qualify that $18 billion, put some context around that. So in my home state of Queensland, there was a new hospital built on the Sunshine Coast for $1.8 billion that had 450 beds in it. So we're talking about 10 seriously big hospitals there that have been spent on COVID treatments. Does that $18 billion include the $38 Medicare rebate for people who, for doctors who deliver a COVID vaccine assessment?
Sorry, so Senator, we're just trying to understand where you've got the $18 billion number from.
Well, I'm happy to table it if you like. It's from the Department of Health. It was earlier this year. So the Australian government has invested a total of over $18 billion in COVID vaccine and treatments.
It might be useful if we just table that so we understood what or provided the Chair agrees, so we can understand the context of what was put forward.
Okay, I'll follow up the more, probably an easy one while that's been photocopied. So we went out and the Australian government bought 300 million doses of COVID vaccines. This is before your time, I accept. When at the same time, health authorities are saying 2 doses was enough to protect you from COVID. So for 25 million people, 2 doses, 50 million doses, let's say you bought 375 million doses. At that stage, I think it was $8 billion the cost for those 300 million doses. Why did we buy 12 doses per person when you were saying 2 doses were enough, given that we've paid an extra $6 billion for vaccines that we're probably not going to use?
So who's the best?
Penny Shakespeare, Deputy Secretary, Health Resourcing Group. Senator, I think it's a matter of record that the government took an approach of developing a portfolio of vaccines. We had different types of vaccines being developed. There were some that would be more suitable or patients would prefer to have some than others. So it wasn't that there was a one-to-one purchase of a vaccine in the doses required for each citizen.
Well, I guess that's my point. I mean, it's great that people had a choice, but you needed, let's say, 3 doses per person, 75 million doses. You went out and bought 300 million, and I've just quoted what it cost to build a hospital 10 years ago on the Sunshine Coast of 1.8 billion. You've spent about an extra 5 or 6 billion on doses that were never going to be able to be rolled out. So that's an expensive choice, isn't it? I mean, either the vaccine works or it doesn't. So why have we bought so many extra doses when they weren't needed, and at the expense of frontline services?
So those were decisions taken by the government during the management of the pandemic. It was a time of considerable uncertainty. We've had reviews that have looked at the appropriateness of the vaccine purchasing strategy that was developed and recommended that at that point we continue with having a portfolio of vaccines available.
But you weren't uncertain about the effectiveness of the vaccine. You were saying that 2 doses of vaccine would prevent COVID. So we didn't need to buy an excess number of doses, given that money was being, could have been used on other frontline health services. Do you accept that? I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't say the vaccine's effective and then buy 12 doses, knowing at the expense of billions, costing extra billions.
Senator, I think we do always have to be careful about recreating the past. I think in some of in the present. So if you take yourself back to 2020 when we had and you know this very well because I know it's been an interest of yours all throughout. In mid-2020 we had to, and I can't talk about the actual commercial and confidence elements of this, but there was a need to work through in great uncertainty about what type of vaccine might be used, what might be available, what might be the first that was available, what might be the most effective, the safest and the
But you were saying
best
they're all
quality.
effective.
Sorry?
You were saying they were all effective.
We're talking about, so let's go back 4 years when none of that was certain. And so we, as many other countries in the world did, and as Ms Shakespeare has said, the government of the day decided to go on a portfolio approach. So that meant that actually we needed to order enough for everyone, but multiple times, because at that point, and as history has shown, some of those vaccines were not available quickly, or they had issues involved with them that meant that we needed to go down other paths. So that was a precautionary approach, and the right approach, in my sense, about that. The cost element is a trade-off for that. If we'd taken one egg in one basket and that egg had not worked, or had not come at the time it was said it might come, or had never actually developed at all, then we would have been criticised at the time.
Authorised G. Rennick People First Chermside.